lifestyle designers. This is Zach with Secrets of Longevity.com. For a lot of people, exercise is something that is difficult for them to do, if they even do it at all. A big hurdle in this, and what causes people to see it as such a barrier, see it as something that's not necessarily extremely enjoyable or just part of their life, almost like it becomes a chore, is the attachment mentally people have about exercise and also about their own personal body image. And that in itself creates barriers and hurdles. But also the other factor is the foundation from which they're approaching their reasons for exercising, and also the way they choose to exercise. Now, anyone that chooses to do any specific form of exercise or sport that is doing it just for the passion of that thing, I have no qualms about that, do that. I personally have certain goals and ideals that lead my choice of exercise, where some people just want to play hockey, or they just want to be a marathon runner, or they just want to be a bodybuilder, or whatever it is that they're pursuing. That's totally fine. But if you're into health, and perhaps even loftier goals like long life, getting into alignment with the planet or Earth or our natural way of living, one could say rewilding even, if you're approaching it from sort of a survivalist type mentality, and also a thriving type mentality. And it's also, from a spiritual perspective, a way to become aligned with the universe, or the ways in which you can make your life flow with ease, and more specifically flow with your body through life with ease. Those could be likened to the Taoist philosophy of Wu Wei, or being aligned with the Tao. This is when things just flow smoothly like a running river. There's really no hard intention to make it do something specific, but you're just capable and fluid in life because of the way you exercise and whatever practices you hold as your forms of exercise. So with that being said, I just wanted to touch on a few things that I think help shape the choices of things you choose to engage in. Also things that, no matter what you do, would be going against the grain of what is natural for our bodies. And the first thing really is the idea that we need to be going to a gym and doing the types of exercises you see in a gym. So that's anything with ultra cardio, especially when you get into the higher realms of cardio, when people are doing very long distances of any type of cardiovascular exercise. That's obviously going to be hard on the body. They might read some studies from a certain time period and claim that that is their reason for doing it, because they think it's the most optimal thing for their health. And if you're going to be limited in your scope of thinking, that's fine. You might have a passion for that, but just hear me out. Then of course you also have the types of exercises that are like power classes, where you're following someone and it's just an exercise class designed to target different muscle groups in certain areas and accomplish certain things, making you sweat by the end of the hour-long period so that you feel like you've had a good workout. Then you also have the people that are really locked into the way their body looks, and they're exercising in a way that gives them the most results. In the case of bodybuilding, it's going to be hypertrophy, where your muscles take on a lot of fluid and other things to get bigger. And they blow up like a balloon, literally. That's what hypertrophy means, is to increase the volume without overly increasing the substance of that thing. Any bodybuilder will tell you, if they happen to go through a period in their life where they can't eat the ridiculous amounts of food every 3 hours or every 2 hours that they have to eat, or they miss like 1 or 2 weeks straight of working out, they lose a lot of muscle fast. And this really isn't muscle mass, it's a lot of water. And their strength drops. It's strength in one compound area to move a weight in that isolated area. I'm not saying there's not strong bodybuilders out there. There's some who really use a more dynamic approach, when you see people incorporating things like CrossFit into their workout regimens. But there's also people who are just stuck on the bulking up, thinking that it's going to have that appearance that's intimidating, making them look strong, etc. But really, if you put, a welterweight Thai boxer or a welterweight MMA fighter in a ring with a bodybuilder who's 250 pounds, the welterweight's probably going to kick their ass, because they've been training to have that function. So then you have to look at what's the reasoning for doing that, for getting those big muscles. Because it's not going to win you a fight unless it's just based on intimidation. It's not actually going to be the best thing for your health. When you consider the health benefits of hyperplasia, which is the strength training that isn't based on trying to bulk up muscle, but increase how much you can lift. And this is because when you use multiple muscle groups and you're not training to failure, you're actually increasing the density of the muscle. It's almost like laying down plywood with many layers that are compact and stuck together, as opposed to building a model airplane with big gaps in between the structures inside of it to make it appear as you've got some substance when it's hollow inside. But yeah, if your goals are purely cosmetic, you want to have that certain look, then go for it. But if your goals are one of having actual strength, being able to defend yourself, being able to survive in a crucial situation that could be life-threatening in means of incoming personal attack, or you want to have the functionality that allows you to do everyday tasks with greater ease, such as strength. So if you live in or one day plan to have a home, perhaps on property which has a lot of work that you need to do outside, you're going to be able to do those jobs that might involve heavier labor. So these are all just things to consider. Now, when it also comes into play, like I was talking about earlier, the spiritual side of things, when you start incorporating more natural type movements as opposed to being in a synthetically lit, recycled air type building, such as a gym, and you're doing some sort of exercise outside, or when you're doing a practice that involves mind-body awareness as opposed to just these repetitive motions like running on the spot with a bike or a treadmill, lifting the same weight day in and day out. When you redo that muscle group, you're just increasing the weight of it. You can start to also have an impact on your mental state. So someone who spent 20 years training in a style of martial art, for instance, who's also able to build the proper strength with bodyweight exercises, but can also be functional in those movements with strikes, defense, etc., they're going to have a mentality that's different from a bodybuilder. If you've spent any amount of time in the gym, you'll know what I mean. If you've also had experience doing other types of exercise, if you spent any time doing CrossFit, you'll know the mentality of the people there and what happens to you over time as you do these things. So if you're someone who doesn't exercise much, or you're just getting into exercising more, or you are already exercising plenty, I recommend taking a step back and just thinking about where does you want to go and what could be the benefits of you doing something slightly different, or even radically different, or perhaps you're already doing something that's perfectly legitimate for you, in creating a mentality that is one that is in alignment with the way your body's designed as a human. So you're not trying to mimic another animal like a rhino in terms of bulking up, or a wolf in terms of being able to run for 100 miles and not tire, or any of these other animals that have their own way of doing things. Humans were hunters, they were warriors, they were gatherers. They were able to walk long distances and have benefits from that walking activity. On occasions they had to be very fast moving, but for short distances. There were obviously tribes and things that developed things like persistence hunting, where they were running for very long distances to tire out an animal, and that's totally legitimate, but I highly doubt that the people watching this video actually descended from those unique tribes that would have developed the body types for that particular activity. Now again, I'm not trying to tread on any shoes, I just wanted to bring these topics up and perhaps open some minds to the possibilities out there for where you take yourself. I want to show you some examples of different clips to linking to other videos of certain things that I've either engaged in the past, intend to engage in the future, or I'm engaging in right now. These are martial arts, these are forms of strength training, and then also there's an older video of mine showing me doing hill sprints, and that's something I've started again now that the weather's nice. Should have kept it up during the winter, because I've actually noticed my ability to do these has dropped drastically, and I'm out of shape in that specific type of activity, and that's the very sudden, high intensity type interval training, which is doing a sprint of a set distance, then taking a rest that's longer than that sprint, and then repeating it for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if you're really in shape, 7 and 8 times in a row. And so you can watch that one here, it's an older video. You can watch this video if you want to see a great martial art that is internal martial art, but has been developed specifically for martial purposes. It's not just a fluff movement for the sake of movement type martial art, which you see a lot of today. That's not applicable in the real world. And it's also not one of these MMA type martial arts that is only really applicable when there's restricted guidelines, and you always hear of certain stories. There was one not too long ago about an MMA fighter. I don't think he was that well known, but you know, he was doing it on the verge of becoming professional, and he was in a bar, got in a fight, and got stabbed and was killed. He didn't have training on how to deal with someone coming at him with a knife. He had training how to deal with one person throwing punches or trying to grapple him to the ground. But what happens when you're confronted with 2, 3, 4, 5 people? So that's something to consider with a martial art. Is it based on real-world experience for real-world self-defense? A lot of the martial arts that have been used by bodyguards, the army in different armies around the world, police, etc., are based on some of these principles. This happens to be Julan Bagua, but there's also Sistema, which is a Russian martial art you can see here, and then there's also Krav Maga, which you can see here. Just throwing it out there for different things to check out. I also highly recommend any of the books you can find on dragondoor.com, which you can find in the drop-down menu below. Probably the most well-known author and teacher on that site, who also has many DVDs out, is Pavel Tsatsouline, who's an ex-Russian military trainer, or special forces trainer, Spetsnaz, and at some point he came over to America and started teaching various forms of conditioning. Very appealing to martial artists, but it's also great for anyone that wants real-world functional strength. He's the guy who brought kettlebells, actually, and popularized them. You also see the popularity of things like club bells, a whole assortment of different types of bodyweight training, and a lot of other types of training. So check that out. I have a number of products from them, and I'm not disappointed. I basically just train with a lot of those principles. And you really start to learn that real strength and real-world functional strength is not based on looking a certain way, but actually being able to execute certain things. So let me know what you think about what I talked about in this video in the comments below. Check out the links in the drop-down menu if you wish to support me through the link to dragondoor.com or any of the other affiliates there. And also subscribe if you haven't done that before. And with that, take care and embrace life without limits.